What up, nerds? Welcome to another tentacle-filled episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name's Bob. I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode number 308, recorded on Monday, March 1st, 2021. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Oldboy from 2003, which was the winner of the February poll pick. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show. First up, calling in from Washington, D.C., we got our boy Randy Gandy G. Landy. What's up, man?
What's going on, my blue dragons?
I want to be red. Call me Red Dragon.
I won't do it.
Okay.
I won't besmirch this film.
That's very rude, but I guess I'll have to settle for blue.
You will.
Last but not least, we got old Dragon Stains himself here. Soju, what's up, man?
안녕하세요. Irumi Soju. What up, boys?
It's a lot of vowels.
Can't understand you.
Vowel heavy.
Lots of vowels.
Is that Cajun or what?
Yep, that is Cajun.
Got that Creole accent I hear.
This is a Cajun film, after all.
Mm-hmm. Filmed in the bayou, as you can tell by all the high rises.
Bayous of South Korea. Down in the bayou, eating a living squid. You gotta eat a squid. You.
I don't know what's going on.
Let's go on. Don't let me riff anymore.
It's my favorite song. I love it. So yeah, let's tackle some housekeeping real quick before we get into the main event. It's a new month, so that means we got a new poll pick. The April poll pick is currently posted on our Patreon website. If you support us at the $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a movie we're talking about this April. The theme for April is Frights of Spring, and the three movies to vote between are Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1978, Troll 2, and The Wicker Man from 1973.
All right, Bob. How are those numbers looking so far? Well, it's March 1st.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still early.
Slim.
Early in the game. Body Snatchers is winning currently, but not,
is it?
Not by too much. So, you know,
Okay.
it's still could be anybody's game here.
Cool.
First thing this morning, there were already like 3 votes per, and I was well, this might be a tight race. Who knows?
People follow close.
Yeah.
The old Straight Chilling Patreon.
It's time for somebody to start taking up the mantle and making smear campaigns on the Slack and shit.
we don't need to go there. The winner of the March poll pick, by the way, was Wicked City, so we'll be talking about that here in the next couple weeks. Slam your eyeballs into it. Get ready for some wild animated shit, apparently.
All right. Adult themed.
Yeah, hopefully it's just filled with tentacles to the brim.
Probably. It's Japanese, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
Yep.
So yes.
Sure.
Simple math. In other Patreon news, we do have a brand new mini cast. And if you support us at the $10 level or above, you get access to Patreon exclusive content.
Bob.
Exclusive content.
We don't say the last syllable around here, Bob. We don't appreciate people who do.
Yeah, you're right. Randy actually joined me on this mini cast.
A rare sight indeed.
Yeah, first time caller, Randy Gandy G. Landy. We talk about Psycho Gourmand. So that's a bloody good time. If you want to hear our thoughts on that, jump over on our Patreon website, sign up. You'll get access to our Psycho Gourmand minicast, as well as over 30 other minicasts just sitting there waiting for your
prepared to be bedazzled.
Be prepared.
Be prepared.
Prepare your body and mind to be bedazzled.
Especially your body.
My body is particularly prepared to be bedazzled.
Damn straight.
The last bit of Patreon news, and glorious news it is. We have a brand new Patreon supporter. Oh yeah, we gotta
give what my gas was for earlier.
Preemptive.
That's what your gas was for.
You're very gassy.
Just letting little poots right now.
We gotta give shouts outs to Scottzilla. Thank you so much for signing up and supporting us on Patreon. Every dollar you guys contribute goes right back into the show. It really does mean a lot to us. And as is tradish around these here parts, we owe Scottzilla the straight chilling salute. This one's for Scott.
Slap me in the ass.
Slap me in the ass, Scott.
Inside, please.
Scott.
Get in there and slap it.
Root around.
Thanks, Scott. We appreciate it for real,
Yeah,
though.
thank you, Scott.
Slaps aside.
Yeah. In all seriousness. Thanks. Your shit's in the mail. It's heading your way.
It's getting one of those colon exams via the mail.
Your shit is in the mail. Yep. You do it yourself. DIY. Hope you got a mirror.
Healthcare is getting real weird in the States.
Real weird.
Went on too long.
Just box up your duty and send it off for analysis. That's what we do around these parts.
In Washington, D.C. That's all the Patreon news we have. Juice, you got some YouTubes, right? What's going on?
Oh, my house is filthy. Let me clean it.
Please do.
So, a little YouTubes. Tomorrow is Top 5 Tuesday. It is the first Tuesday of the month, so a new Top 5 list will be coming out. And since I had to do research for this film already, and I knew we were covering Oldboy, tomorrow's topic is going to be Top 5 Korean revenge films.
Yeah.
So I did one last year, which focused on Korean horror specifically, but this like revenge like subgenre, it's very brutal, it's very like violent, but it's not always like quite horror. So I did a separate list because it's pretty popular over there. There's a lot of good films included in this subgenre. What, Randy, you got a critique?
Oh, at this rate, we're definitely going to be doing top 5 K-pop bands within the next few months.
Oh, yeah. The true horror.
It kind of is. Come to find out.
A little bit.
I don't know, man. I don't listen to the music, but the fans, they do God's work, so God bless them.
Yeah. So that's the list that's going to be coming out on YouTube tomorrow. Also, some new video game stuff is up there. I mentioned last week that I'd started playing Little Nightmares 2. I put up the first level on there if you're curious about it, or if you're just not interested in playing it yourself, but you'd kind of like to check it out. The first level's up there. You can watch it. It's like 30 minutes. I did a no commentary one, so it's just gameplay. If you want to throw it on in the background or you're curious about the game, that is up there now. And we have several games that are like that, where it's just kind of horror gameplay if you're interested in checking that out without the commentary. Other than that, I think I'm good.
Tight. The last bit of housekeeping I have here real quick is we got a new episode of Let's Get Physical Media. You can get that anywhere you get your podcasts. My boy Mikey and myself, we talk about all things physical media, specifically Blu-rays, 4Ks, DVDs. We don't talk specifically about horror, but it is mostly horror. So we talk about Scream Factory, Arrow Video, some Criterion stuff was mentioned. So if you're a collector or it's something you're looking to get into, check out Let's Get Physical Media anywhere you get your podcasts.
How's your Laserdisc collection looking these days, Bob?
It's growing.
Slim?
It's massive. It's huge.
Bob?
Oh my God.
I actually did have some Laserdiscs that I got for free. I got a big crate for free, and I gave them all to pour one out for Drew, our late cast member Drew. He's still alive, but he's just no longer on the podcast.
Damn.
He was hit by a
laser
speeding
disc.
truck full of COVID.
Drive-by fruiting, and he's just gone. No, yeah, I had like some Star Wars movies and shit on Laserdisc. I gave them all to him. I don't know if he still has them. I hope he does. They're pretty cool, but also just like I had no way to play them. So anyway, tangent. That's all we got. Our house is fucking clean.
This house is clean.
Let's go ahead and get into the main event. We're going to be talking about Oldboy, and we're kicking it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
Bob, I know you have many of these boxes. We won't pull a My Bloody Valentine and read it at the same time. So,
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I do have two of these, DVD and Blu-ray. Anyway, the back of the Blu-ray here says, a man is inexplicably kidnapped and imprisoned for 15 years, and his wife is brutally murdered. On his release, he is given a wallet full of money and a mobile phone. A stranger calls and asks him to try and figure out why he was imprisoned. A girl appears and promises to help him solve the enigma and seek vengeance for his cruel fate. Oldboy, again, we're talking about the original from 2003, the Korean language film. This was directed by Chan-wook Park. Stars a whole bunch of people whose names I refuse to butcher, so I'm not going to say them. Jill Mangs, have you seen this movie before, and would you recommend people check it out? Randy?
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that between the three of us, we're old fans of this film. Having seen it, I mean, for me at least, first time in college, and yeah, I think this is this is one of those movies that definitely toes a line where you could definitely have the argument about which genre this belongs to. I think that probably its most evident connection is to action film. So there's a lot of action in this. There's, a lot of pathos in this too, and certainly some gruesome shit. So, yeah, if that sounds like your cup of tea, you're going to have a good time with this. I think that this is one of those movies that does exceptionally well at crossing over internationally from Korea. Certainly it was one of the first South Korean films that I ever got a chance to watch. So recommend.
Sweet deal. Juice, what about you?
Yeah, I think we all watched it together, and I'm pretty sure that it was the first Korean film I ever saw. It left a huge impression on me. We watched it, I don't know, a long time ago, at least 10 years ago. So I was young. Bob was showing preteens these crazy Korean movies at the time when he was in college. But
there's the joke, everyone. There it is. You were waiting on it. We got it.
But yeah, so I had seen it before. And also, we've talked about this director a lot before. We covered Thirst just last year, is another movie he directed. So I would recommend. I'm a big fan of this director and his work. And this is not a blank check recommend, though. I think horror fans can handle it just fine. But don't bring your mom along.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, I would recommend. Bob?
Yes.
I know you saw it with me, so you have 2 copies now.
Yes.
Would you recommend people check this out?
Yeah, I definitely would recommend you watch Oldboy if you have not already. I remember the first time watching this, it just blew my mind in half. I'd never seen anything quite like it. It's very, very twisted and pretty dark. So if you're not into that sort of thing, then don't watch it. It's very, very much, about revenge, Korean vengeance or whatever. But solid story.
Sweet Korean vengeance.
It's the sweetest type of
honestly,
vengeance.
American Vengeance sounds like a Fox show. I could totally see that as being a thing. American Vengeance.
I don't think I'd watch that one.
It sounds like Cheaters, really. But
yeah, definitely would recommend Oldboy. Check it out. Solid recommend from the Straight Chilling crew. Let's go ahead and get into the rest of the movie. We're dropping that spoiler warning. Here we go.
Spoiler warning.
All right, real quick. I know Bob's got to do a plot synopsis. This I'm hopefully helping. I could be complicating it a little bit, but we have 3 main characters in this. So let's just go over their names and their pronunciations real quick.
Thank you.
So our main guy is Dae-Su, or Dae-Su. Dae-Su's fine. The girl's name is Mido. And I believe, because it actually doesn't have the Korean letters here, but I'm pretty sure this is how this is pronounced. And then the last guy, the guy who's like the mastermind, Eugene. So like Eugene, but instead of you, it's Eugene.
Eugene.
Yeah.
Okay. I just kept calling him Evergreen because that was like his little...
yeah, all right. That's not bad.
Eugene.
So those are like really, I think, the only 3 people we need to reference by name.
Yeah, that sounds right.
What about Cisco, the right-hand man of Eugene?
Oh,
Cisco, because of his blonde hair.
Just call him Cisco.
Because he's got that silver locks, bro.
His name is Mr. Han.
Yeah.
That's right, Mr. Han. Okay.
From Lincoln Park.
Yeah, yes.
It starts with one thing. Sorry, bud.
Mr. Han.
What if this movie was recut with Linkin Park songs? I would watch it. That sounds like some early Napsters bullshit. I'm all over it.
Yeah, I'd be into it. I did not type up a plot synopsis for this movie because I just ran out of time. I can run through it real quick though. The back of the box sort of got us into it. Basically, the movie opens up with our boy Dae-Su being drunk and acting a fool. So he gets arrested. He's like held at the police station. His buddy comes to pick him up, and it turns out it's his little girl's birthday, and he's got her a present, and he calls her on the phone, the payphone, and then his buddy sort of gets on the phone and turns around, and Dae-Su's just gone. So he gets kidnapped. He gets imprisoned for 15 years. They finally let him go. He has until the 4th of July to figure out who imprisoned him and why, the 5th of July. And he meets a girl along the way. He works at a sushi shop, and she tries to help him figure out this mystery. They end up falling in love. And as the mystery unravels, we get a flashback, and we see Dae-Su as a child, a teenager, I guess. He's in high school, and he's creeping on these two people that are making out, getting naked, doing whatever. And he mentions to his buddy that he sees this girl getting jiggy with some dude, and then he leaves. And that little juicy bit sort of, I guess, spirals out of control, and turns out that the two people that were getting jiggy with it is Eugene and his sister. So there's a little dash of incest going on here in the story.
Still dash of incest.
Just a dash.
To taste.
So Eugene's sister, because this gets out, people find out about it. She ends up committing suicide, and Eugene seeks vengeance on Dae-Su, so he imprisoned him for 15 years. And it turns out the girl that is helping Dae-Su crack this mystery wide open is indeed his daughter. And
Bob.
Yeah.
Bob, no.
Yeah.
Bob, no.
Yeah. So he got jiggy with his daughter, and that's just another dash of incest there for you.
Man, you're really committing to the jiggy line.
I don't know.
We are melding with boomers.
Listening to a lot of Will Smith getting jiggy with it. You know?
Oh yeah, I mean, as you do.
So we find out. Dae-Su gets down with his daughter. He has like a mental breakdown. He cuts his own tongue out. He begs Eugene not to tell his daughter. Eugene actually ends up obliging and not telling her. And then the movie ends with Dae-Su getting hypnotized so that he forgets that he's fallen in love with his daughter, and it works. And he and his daughter remain in a happy relationship together. And
maybe.
That's maybe. Well,
reason to think that might not go off as planned.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's essentially the plot of this real fucked up movie.
Yeah, and the one thing you glossed over primarily is just the insane amount of combat that goes on in this movie.
A lot of
to the point where that's what this movie is primarily known for, is one scene in particular that's a long shot in a hallway.
Hell
and even
yeah.
if you haven't seen this movie, you've probably, if you're in the nerd circles like we are, you've probably come across a shot or two from this movie, from that scene of Dae-Su just wailing on ass with it, just a ball with a claw hammer. Dude,
wailing on ass.
they're gonna beat the ass off of your body
with a
That's
hammer.
right, me.
Hammer time.
Stop.
Yes.
Hammer time.
Yep.
So yes, that's kind of like that's the filling of this movie sandwich right here. That's the meat. People really respond to that because it is really incredibly shot and really beautifully like brutal, if that makes sense.
The fight choreography throughout this movie, specifically in that one scene, is incredible. Like Dae-Su fights, I don't know, 30, 40 people in a hallway. It's like an army of people. And
it's so many.
It's sort of realistic because he's getting his ass whooped pretty good.
I like how he also just gets his ass whooped.
Oh yeah.
So it's not realistic in the fact that he would actually be able to get up from that ass whooping, but it's like such a fun fucking scene because he does whip some ass with that hammer. God, that scene's so badass. And then
it's so good. He gets literally stabbed in the back in the middle of that fight, and
the
just
knife
keeps rolling.
Just stays in his back.
Yeah.
I love that shit. Oh my god.
Yeah,
that's a cool scene.
It's heightened for sure. It ain't realistic, but it's realistic enough to feel visceral.
Yeah, it does, because they're also trying to like beat him with pieces of wood and like pipes and shit. They stab
all
him,
kinds of shit.
But he's just like breaking people's arms and legs and feet with a hammer, and it gets nuts.
This is after he did some impromptu oral surgery on a man with that same hammer.
Yeah.
So,
speaking
it was
of, I know,
brutal.
I know Hotline Kinks, Bob's definitely an extra teeth kind of guy. So,
Yeah.
Bob, were you popping the Q-Che during that scene?
Yeah, I was at full mast. There's really nothing more that gets me going than just teeth. Just shots, up close shots of teeth. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
So be a dentist.
The more
You should've missed your
enamel,
boat,
the better. No, that seems super gruesome. Like getting your teeth knocked out with the claw end of a hammer. I cannot imagine what that would feel like.
Yeah,
The payoff for that is beautiful. Sorry, go on.
Yeah.
I usually don't mind violence too much, but that one, it's such a sensitive area. And when they actually show him ripping a tooth, I had to like look away. I'm not going to lie. I was like, holy shit. Ugh.
Yeah, that scene is really brutal, but then it's followed later, but where that guy comes back into the picture and has Dae-Su at his will and is about to pull the same stunt on him before he's stopped by our big bad, who gives him a trunk full of money in exchange for sparing this guy's life instead of getting vengeance.
Yeah.
But before that happens, he's got the claw tooth on Dae-Su's tooth, and then he like does a fake out, and Dae-Su's like freaked out, and he's like, oh shit. But then he goes back in to do it again, and Dae-Su just starts wigging the fuck out and cackling like an insane person. And that is like it is really awesome. Like I don't know the actor's name, but Dae-Su's like actor is so fucking big when he goes off the rails, and it's so fun to watch him go nuts.
Yeah. Another thing, I know we need to kind of back it up a little bit. We kind of got off on a tangent, but with that same scene, one thing I like about this movie too, they do it like many times. It's pretty kind of like a theme that they play with during this movie, but specifically since we're talking about the teeth scene, when he goes to take Dae-Su's teeth out and he fakes them out, he does this kind of like little bits of wisdom, which they do throughout the movie. But he's talking about like they say he says something like the people who feel the most pain are the people who have like the biggest imagination. So he's like, in order to be brave, you have to be like a very like stark person, like drop your imagination and you won't hurt so much. And it, like, cause he would like faked him out. He's like, I didn't even do anything to you. And you like flinched, you freaked out because you imagined how terrible it would be to get your tooth like,
and that's
out.
true, man. There's like studies and shit, or like even that I don't know what it's called, Magic for Humans, I think it is, on Netflix. They had this bit that's kind of a classic like mind study thing where you put your hands on the table, one of them is hidden behind a wall, or no, you put your hand behind a wall and then like a fake hand right in front of you, and then somebody comes in and suddenly smashes it with a hammer and you freak out.
Fake hand,
because you feel your hand in a similar position and you're looking at a hand getting smashed with a hammer, and your brain just combines those things. So yeah, I mean, there's some reality to that, but the idea that Dae-Su then just immediately adopts that into his mind, he's like, you know what, you're right. I'm not scared anymore because I don't give a fuck what happens now. I'm not imagining it. I'm really just imagining stabbing you with this fucking pencil I've got in my back pocket or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It was great. So that's great. Yeah, we should roll it back though.
Yeah, roll it back. I get like the first thing. So it plays out like a mystery, except it's not a mystery you could ever figure out. So you're kind of going along with this character and be like, what the fuck is happening? What the fuck is happening? Because it's crazy shit. And the first wild thing is this guy gets abducted and he gets put in this room and he's stuck there for 15 years. And I like that we're covering this now because for the past year, people have some sort of relation of what it's like to be stuck in a very small space. And so the idea that this man goes insane after being in this one room for 15 years eating the same meal every day is maybe a little more relatable now, where people just get stark crazy, like being stuck in their house with their loved ones or their family or friend, you know. So
I eat dumplings every day anyway. I'm
Dumplings
fine.
every day.
Dumplings are my life.
But I like the process that they go through of showing him descend kind of into madness, so that this wacky ass character that you get to spend the rest of the movie with feels a little more grounded, even though, you know, some crazy shit happens. But even just the brutality of watching him punching a wall over and over and over because he's got nothing else to do, and he's learning how to fight by watching boxing on television, but literally that's all he can do for 15 years. So he's just punching a wall and watching television, watching boxing moves. So when he gets out and beats ass, you're like, it does look like amateur, but it looks believable. You're like, holy shit, that dude's just been punching a wall for 15 years. Like, yeah, he's just beating ass.
And, you know, he's hurt himself so much at that point that, like, he also has a pretty strong aversion to pain. Not aversion, excuse me. He's able to withstand a lot
Tolerance,
of pain. Because, he's got a high tolerance for it because he's broken his hand punching a wall over and over again and doing all these different things. He really does Linda Hamilton the shit out of that prison cell that he's in. But it's an interesting thing because this is like, he's not the only person there. And that's one thing that I always wish this movie explored more, was like, I thought the first time I watched this, I remember thinking like, man, I hope he lets all these fucking people out and they all just wail ass on this dude. Am I saying that too much? Probably too much. But anyway, so like, yeah, there's like a handful of guards or whatever, and then just rows and rows and rows of people being held for indeterminate amount of time. I think a minimum
I think they specifically mention it's 3 floors worth. He's like, I've got like 3 floors. I think it's like floor 7 to 10 or something. And I will say, this has happened to me a couple of times where I've strolled into a building in Korea
and been imprisoned.
And and thought to myself, like, oh my God, this really reminds me of Oldboy. Like, this could be true. Like, you have these tall ass apartment / office buildings where like everybody just like minds their own business, and there's just like so many buildings in Korea that are like this, especially like if you're in Seoul. And like I went to get one, like my iPhone fixed one time, and it's just this random room where you like have to knock on the door to go in. Nobody keeps their like doors open, and it's just rows and rows of halls, and you see no other person. And there's floors and floors of it, just like that. Like buildings in Seoul go up like 30, 40 floors, and there's like hundreds of them. So it's not too unbelievable to think that 3 floors somewhere has a shit ton of people in prison. Nobody would fucking know. No, like, why would you stop on the 7th floor of this building? Why would you do it? There's no reason to. So it's.
I would actually go even further and say that that's almost certainly happening somewhere, because human trafficking is a huge fucking thing that definitely does exist. And whether or not it exists for the reasons of a Machiavellian plot for revenge, probably not exactly like this movie. But there's definitely people fucking being trafficked and or otherwise imprisoned for years at a time off the grid somewhere in office buildings, probably, and like certainly out in the sticks there are certainly things like that going on, and it's horrific to think about, especially in the context of reality, as opposed to this movie where it's, you know, a little bit heightened because of the situation going on around it.
Well, and it's even an interesting kind of believable idea that, like, if you were able to like rent this space or whatever. Now, some of it's not, like the hypnosis and the pumping and gas, like, you know, that's less believable.
That's comic booky,
sure, but the idea that you would start a business where you would go pay someone and they would kidnap someone and hold them for a certain amount of however long you pay them for is not so unbelievable. It's
not impossible.
No,
I mean, shit.
It's not.
We have private prisons in this country.
Once you think about it, you're like, oh shit, yeah, that really could, because even we get like these like kind of flashbacks where he's listening back to a tape because he's trying to figure out like who imprisoned me, and he finally tracks it down to the actual building. And so that's when he tortures the guy by pulling his teeth out. The guy said, you know, I don't actually know who it was, but we taped. It's like an audio recording. And so he's listening back to it, and he's like, how long do you want to hold him for? And the dude's like 15 years. And obviously that's not the norm. And so
that's longer than usual.
And that's where it gets into like, you know, is he going to go fucking insane? How can we keep him as sane as possible? But also it tells you that this dude is loaded, like money wise. Like this dude's super well to like keep somebody imprisoned and to feed them and to pump gas into their room to make them sleep and shit. Like for 15 years, you'd have to be like have a lot of money.
Oh yeah, and we definitely come to find out that that's the case. Can we talk about Eugene for a minute, because it's not just his wealth, but like the level of scheming that he's doing in this movie is probably the most unrealistic thing out the movie.
I would agree with that.
Yeah,
that's my biggest problem with it. Continue.
Yeah, all I was going to say is really just that, like, the amount of moving parts that you have to be absolutely certain about going perfectly right is so huge. Like, to me, I'm watching the end of this movie, just to skip ahead for a minute, where they're having their final confrontation, and he's like, but if you kill me, then you don't blah, blah, blah. My immediate thought was Walter White just taking the shot and being like, fuck you. I don't need to know. I need you dead.
But to be fair, now, if we're going off the ending of this, now the plausibility of everything that happens to figure out this riddle is much more of a stretch to me. But in the end, the guy kills himself anyways. So he's prepared to die. Like the only thing he's living for is to torture this man. So if it just so happens that this man turns around and kills him, I don't think that's a big deal. And he keeps that like badass bodyguard around until the very end. So he tries to keep it going as long as possible until he literally doesn't give a fuck anymore. So
yeah,
I mean,
no, you're definitely right.
Some steps in place.
To me though, like, yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking, you know, as you do, I'm inserting myself into the role at that moment. And I'm thinking, no, like, I don't need to know anything beyond what I already know to know this guy deserves the axe. I'm going to take this guy out. And I'm not going to let him say another goddamn word, because who the fuck knows what kind of bullshit he's going to pull out of his ass. Like, that's just the way I think about it. Like, if you're on a revenge quest at that point, you know what he's done. You know, like, he's imprisoned you for 15 years. He's threatened and almost killed, like, people that are, like, he has killed people that you love, your wife. He killed your wife and framed you for it. This is a guy that deserves some retribution on some level. So Dae-Su is planning on taking that, and I wouldn't let my questions inhibit that in any way. I wouldn't need answers at that point. But that said, like, Eugene's whole thing is that he watches him for those 15 years. He's obsessed with this man. So he gets into his head is the presumption. That's what's going on. And so that is supposedly what enables him to predict how he's going to act in conjunction with the hypnosis.
The hypnosis is super wonky to me. Like that feels really out of place for this movie, and the fact that it sort of takes it affects the movie in two different ways. It affects it in the way that like allows Eugene to manipulate Dae-Su and Mido and somehow like predict that they will meet up, and like because of certain words that are spoken to Dae-Su over the phone, like he acts a certain way and says something, and those words will cause Mido to do a thing. All that just feels like sort of out of place in this movie to me. And then again at the end where Dae-Su seeks out to be hypnotized again so that he can sort of like, you know, erase his memory of all this terrible shit happening. It feels weird.
And you know, it does feel weird, but and I think the reason is because they definitely started at this is a movie where you can see them writing it backwards. You know what I mean? Like they needed that last confrontation. They needed him to have been fooled all the way up to this point into doing what he's done with what turns out to be his daughter, with everything else. You know, like all this stuff needed to go perfectly so that you could have this big reveal. And there's only one way to do that, or not only one way, but there's only magical ways to do that. You know what I mean? There's no realistic way to perfectly fine-tunedly predict this unless you did some shit that's also like sci-fi or something. You know, it has to be magical realism that gets you there. So that's their way of doing it. And to that extent, I'm like, okay, if it was a lesser movie, it was a less entertaining movie and a less movie that didn't like string me on so strongly and keep me engaged so much, that would be a problem for me storytelling wise. But this movie is so good about keeping every beat really stylistic and really like keeping you on your edge of your seat in terms of just the cinematography and just the way they're presenting things as they're happening. Like some of the shots in this movie are fucking awesome. There's this one shot in particular that stood out to me this time, and it's a really small thing, but when they're going to all of the restaurants, the Blue Dragon restaurants, to find the dumplings that he's been fed for 15 years so that they can backtrack to where this place was and find the boss. They have this shot of Dae-Su like eating all these things and being like disgusted with them, and then he's standing there. There's one shot of him like looking really grim and pallid and like over it, and it zooms out through his chopsticks by the dumpling. I don't know why, but that shot in particular like really stood out to me this time. It's a small thing, but that's like, again, like thinking about Breaking Bad, like that's that like really heightened level of camera work that adds like some drama to a scene, but it only works if your drama is legitimate. And it feels like you've as you're going through these missions, you've really attached yourself to why is this happening to this guy, and you're really invested, or at least I was, with what's going on to him, what's happened to him and his quest for vengeance. So you go along with it, and it seems like a perfect like punch up to that scene.
Yeah, I was going to touch on the hypnosis thing, and I agree that it is there are things that we mentioned like feel kind of comic booky, like the gas and the stuff like that. Amongst things that are really grounded, and I wanted to possibly explain some of these things away, because Oldboy is the second film in this director's like vengeance trilogy, where the first one being Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, which I actually just watched for the first time this week because we were covering this film, and I wanted like to kind of reference things. And this director is capable of creating situations that make more sense. So in that movie, it kind of reminded me of like Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, of kind of like a Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels type of movie where you got all these kind of moving parts that ultimately all kind of come together in a very like, oh shit kind of way. And maybe one of the reasons why this one feels a little more detached and comic booky is because it is the story of Oldboy is based off of a Japanese manga.
Manga.
That was for Randy.
Manga.
You're so cultured.
A Japanese manga. That, and even Hydraberg has it. I think Hydraberg was hitting us up on the Slack. And so that could be one of those things where it's trying to, stay true to that story, because I know that he's capable of creating these moving parts that make more sense than just somebody was hypnotized, I guess.
Yeah, and you're right. Like, it's comic book because it's from a comic book. Like, to some extent, I don't know what elements are taken and which aren't. So maybe that's new to the movie, but there's a reason for that to be the case. So that's fair.
There's a plot,
and even if it wasn't, it's like style. It's just like, to me, it's like it's clearly an actiony, heightened reality style that has enough grounding to keep you wincing when the teeth start getting pried out.
Yeah.
True. There is a plot beat in this movie that sort of bothered me a little bit, or it left me questioning. I don't know, maybe you guys have a explanation for it, but I always wondered, like, Dae-Su gets out of jail, or essentially gets out of jail after 15 years, and he meets this girl named Mido. Like, would he not, like, did she change her name, or would he not?
I wondered that too.
Dots that, like, I have a daughter with the same name who would be exactly your age right now.
Well, that was the thing, is because that was something I was focusing on this time, because I couldn't remember the details of that. And I think what happened is, and I think a little bit of this comes up in trivia too, which I can go ahead and mention it because there's like a shit ton of trivia.
Do it.
So he gets out and he meets this girl, and then she knows the story. She reads his diary and knows that this was a man that was in prison 15 years ago.
Yeah.
His wife died. His daughter's missing, because she tries to help him find his daughter. So they track it down to this place where she was adopted, but now she's living in Sweden. She has like a Swedish like phone number and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. In the trivia, it says that I think the phone number, it's like goes to the Korean embassy in like Sweden or something. Like, it's bullshit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that was part of the implication of her hypnosis. And I think part of the situation, one actual problem I have with this movie is they totally gloss over the idea that his wife was murdered. Like, that's not even a scene that's shown or anything.
He doesn't even reminisce on that shit.
But I think, don't they mention that when she's supposed to be like a young woman, she's still like very young. So I think the implication is even when the mom died, she was still a young age.
Yeah.
And that she, like, part of the hypnosis was to like create almost this new world and identity, and it was easier because this guy had the funds to like support her for her life and just kind of like made this new life for her. So like her name was changed, and like her
he said
life
he was
changed,
secretly
and she
raising
was
her.
hypnotized. Yeah.
Like he said he was like behind the scenes raising her, which I took to mean exactly that. And the thing is, like, it's again that thing where, you know, any of our problems that we have with this, you could easily just be like hypnosis and then leave it at that.
Yeah.
And that can be satisfying for some people and non-satisfying for others. For me, it's like, and this is not usually the case for me. I'm usually pretty like, you know, I can be pretty hard on movies for things like this, but it doesn't bother me so much because this movie is so stylish. And like I kind of covered this a second ago, but it's so stylish that I don't have really time. I don't have brain space to dedicate to poking those holes like I do with other movies, because I'm just like jazzing on all fucking cylinders the whole movie.
Jazzy Randy.
Well, and it also too, and it does this on purpose, again, with like those little bits of like wisdom, because another thing that happens, he's released. He doesn't escape. He's released in this box.
Yeah.
And the first person that he meets is this guy that's about to kill himself. And
Right.
he's
I
like,
wanted to talk
before
about
he
that.
kills himself, I want to tell you my story. And so he tells him his story, and the man kind of like imparts this line, and it's like, I know that I'm no better than a beast, but like, don't I deserve to live or something like that? Yeah. And so that kind of drives some of the movie. But this film, it is the focus, you know, from like the very beginning is style and more of a philosophical one. And because this is like part of the Vengeance trilogy, it really is like posing this question of what is vengeance worth? Like, do you get anything from it? And the answer in all of these movies always is no. Like, it ruins everybody who's involved. Nobody is a winner. Nobody comes out on top. You're like, you only make the situations worse. And so I think because this movie is stylized and like anchored to philosophical ideas specifically about vengeance, but throughout this like one specifically, they're dropping all these little tidbits on you that I think it's easier to gloss over some of that shit, because you're like, that's not really the point. The point isn't to have this airtight story where every single thing makes perfect sense. It's about the feels behind it. And
see, you know, to some extent, I mean, yeah, I see what you're saying. I don't know that I totally agree though, because I would say that like the style of this movie is great, and it keeps me like, it just keeps me like, I salivate with some of these shots. These things are great. But the thing about it is like the story, the philosophy behind it, and maybe this is because I'm just missing it. I've seen this movie a bunch of times, and other than what you just said, which is a very kind of broad topic, I don't necessarily know how some of these things tie in, except that they're just things to further warp Dae-Su's point of view, and that we get to hang on to. Like when that guy says that line to him at the beginning of the movie, the guy who's going to commit suicide, Dae-Su sits him down. He's like, first I have to talk. You're the first person I've seen. I have to tell you my story. He tells him his story. And then the guy says that line to him, and Dae-Su gets up to walk away. And the guy's like, but let me tell you my story. And he's like, hey, wait, you're not going to hear my story. It's like, I don't know, which is just kind of funny and kind of like idiot. Like, I don't know, it's kind of like just a charismatic little thing for him to do. But yeah, like things like that. And the idea of, you know, what's vengeance worth and all that stuff, that's all fine and good, but I don't know that those points are driven home as much as they are like piecemeal, like a la carte philosophical options for you to cling to. I'm not sure how well they hang together, is I guess what I'm saying.
There's also the parallel, like a very clear parallel in the beginning of the movie where he saves that dude's life on the top of the building, and then the end of the movie we get the flashback where old Evergreen's sister kills herself. He's like holding her hand as she's falling off the dam in the exact same way that Dae-Su is holding this dude's tie as he's hanging off the building. And like in one situation, the person is saved, and the other one, they're let go, and she ends up falling to her death. I don't know like why those shots are parallel or like how they connect.
A good point.
Really at all, other than it's just like, oh yeah, I remember that. From
somebody trying to commit suicide, somebody stopping them, but for wildly different reasons.
Yeah.
In her case, it was because her brother loved her. And in his case, it's because he needed to talk to a person.
Well, I guess it's different because in Eugene's case, it's somebody he loves and cares about. But I think the point of those things is creating, even from the beginning, these parallels between Eugene and Dae-Su, which is something that Eugene is purposefully trying to do as part of his vengeance. He doesn't want to just leave this guy in a room for 15 years. Like, that's not even the point. The point is the idea of like creating someone that you love and then like watching them destroy themselves, or creating a situation that would destroy themselves through like the incest situation and everything like that. Yeah. And so I just saw that as another parallel cinematically to link these two characters together, which I think then further drives home the idea of the vengeance, because it's just this cyclical thing where it's like, I get back at you, you get back at me, I get back at you, and it just creates this parallel, like from a visual standpoint of like what these two characters are going through. It's the same situation for both of them.
For Eugene, success looks like him killing himself, him killing himself with the satisfaction of knowing that he has taken everything you can take from this guy, and more than that, he's left him in a situation where he has to either, continue living, and learn how to accept this thing that he's just learned, this horrific thing, this really disturbing thing, or kill himself. And it's like, I guess that kind of leads, and he doesn't have the benefit of somebody to cast vengeance upon anymore the way that Eugene did. So he's leaving him worse off for it. All he can do is like impotently rage about it, kill himself, or move on. Those are his only options. There's nobody he can go after anymore. So yeah, I guess to that extent I could see that. And I don't know. I had some other thought, but it escaped me. But that's a good point, I think.
Eugene is like obviously the villain in this movie, but also like he's seeking vengeance on Dae-Su because like his sister commits suicide because Dae-Su ran his mouth a little bit. But also Eugene could have just saved his sister. Like he let her fall. Like he could have just saved
that's
her.
The thing, is also displacement of your own sins also is going on here. And that's true of Dae-Su as well, because he is not at his daughter's birthday party. He is so drunk that he's arrested, you know what I mean? And then he disappears. Like, and like Dae-Su, his character at the beginning of this film, or before his 15 years of imprisonment, is like just like a drunken buffoon. Like he's a doofus. Even when he's a kid, he smokes and he like mouths off, but he also falls off the fucking jungle gym. Like he's an idiot. And the idiot turns into like this mass murderous capable monster man by virtue of being like in this situation through the virtue of vengeance from this other guy for his idiocy. But also his sin was so small. He didn't actually go around and tell people, yeah, that girl's a slut, or she slept with her brother, anything like that. All he did was say to one guy on his last day in town, like, yeah, I saw her like making out with some guy. It looked like they were going to go all the way or some shit like that. And that's it. But that's all it took to, and that is the original sin in Eugene's mind that just infiltrates and corrupts his entire life. His entire life is dedicated to killing this man now because he doesn't have the love of his life or whatever. I don't know. Like, I just feel like there's a lot going on for the vengeance angle, and it's really cool to see how those things parallel or whatever. But yeah, the intricacies of how this stuff works is where the shortcomings really come. And if you really want to like sink your teeth into the reality of what could be happening.
I thought they did a pretty good job of addressing what you guys were just talking about, and it's something that I didn't remember until I saw it again this time. Like, it wasn't a detail that like I remember sticking out in my mind, but they do address that a little bit in that, like, yeah, Dae-Su is blamed, but ultimately he calls him out because he's like, who took this picture on the dam? Like, your sister killed herself on the dam? Then
and
he
was not expecting that.
Yeah, and you see kind of the, like, his mental walls that he has built up to blame Dae-Su for this, like, start to crumble a little bit. I thought that was a pretty cool moment because ultimately what it comes down to is he impregnated his own sister, and the shame of that, he tried to play it off as like, no, your lie made her body like warp because everyone said she was rumored she was pregnant, so her belly started getting bigger. And he was like, no, I think you really impregnated your own fucking sister, and neither of you could really live with that shame. And she actually had the balls in a way to like kill herself because she couldn't deal with the shame, and you're the one who's blaming other people
I don't know
for
if I put it that way, but yeah.
Well, yeah, you know what I'm saying. Like, she actually, yeah, not the balls, but I'm just like, she
didn't skirt her role in the matter.
Yeah, she accepted and said, like, I can't deal with this. And he, instead of saying, like, I killed my sister or our acts led to this action, he warps it in his mind to a lie and blames it on Dae-Su. So I thought they addressed that actually pretty well with that moment. And something I forgot, and I was like, oh, I liked seeing his like walls crumble when he's confronted.
That's true. Yeah, and like when you take like that moment is really powerful. And so yeah, I guess if you take away the act of her falling off that day, but she could have killed herself a number of ways too. Yeah. So they're making it resonant on purpose.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Like I think that I don't know. The movie, it feels like there's parts of this movie that are just less baked than others. I think that overall it makes a damn good dessert, but you know, sometimes your cake is better for the icing than the cake and vice versa. So, you know, I kind of feel like maybe there's just like a few elements that are a little bit more loosely strung together than others, which is kind of easy to see why, because they're adapting this property that's talking about this insane Machiavellian plot that you have to bring down to earth enough to where people are invested in and also able to sit through violence and gore in order to receive the story and the messaging. One thing that I wanted to bring up, though, this is completely aside, complete non sequitur, the music. Did you guys like the music in this movie? I was loving it this time, and I never really paid attention to it.
Yeah, all three of his movies, like the vintage trilogy, have like really cool soundtracks behind them.
I feel like, and maybe it's a cultural difference, or maybe it's just, you know, maybe it's just the style of the time. But I remember the style of action movies of that time, especially, to be very bombastic, very like. I don't know. Think about the movie fucking Crank. You know what I mean? Think about like the Fast and the Furious movies or whatever. These are movies where they have like high action moments like this movie, but their high action moments are offset with like that sort of shit. And this movie goes the opposite direction. It sounds like it could be like the soundtrack to The Crown or something. There's just really wistful, like soft music, especially towards the end when all this is coming out. It's like very like not classical music so much as just like instrumental orchestral music, which is just so interesting for an action movie from this time period to me.
It's also,
I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I really did like the soundtrack, but it also, like, in you bringing up the soundtrack, it also brings up some other points of why I kind of like low key love this movie a lot too. Is because this movie came out in 2003, and it's like funny for you to compare it to movies of that time. And one of the things I like love about this after the fact, now that I know a little bit more about it from a cultural standpoint in Korea, is that when I saw this movie the first time, it was so fucked up. It's still really fucked up. It's like an action movie, but it's like, imagine if the Fast and the Furious, like the brother and sister were banging it out. Like, what? Yeah. You know, like,
I do often.
It's it's like action based, and yet it's also very stylized and cinematic, and like a very like the craft is amazing in making of this film, and also like the story's just so bonkers, and yet it's so dark and fucked up. But because of its success and because of its craft and just its success as a Korean film, especially internationally, there is hardly a Korean that hasn't seen this film. Like, it's not this underground, like, cult status thing in Korea. Like, this is a movie that's so fucked up about incest and people fucking banging their daughters and cutting their tongues off and shit. And it's touted, like, in Korea, it's like, yeah, you need to watch Oldboy. Like, because it's so successful. Because it's so, like, well-crafted and things like that. And I, like, that's such a fun anomaly in my brain, because trying to think of like if a movie like that came out in the States, like what a grandma would say about, you need to watch Oldboy. Like, no, I can't put those pieces together. But that's kind of how it is in Korea, and it's funny to me to hear people say like, oh shit, Oldboy, yeah, that's like a great Korean film, and it's like, fuck, like it's so fucked up.
Oldboy is to South Korea what peanut butter solution is to Canada. So
it's like I don't know, the equivalent in America is like, I don't know, maybe Deliverance. I'm trying to think of like a classic movie that's real
maybe
twisted.
Like Shawshank Redemption, because it's got a lot of rape in it.
Yeah, there is a lot of rape in that movie.
I mean, less about vengeance, that movie, but yeah.
I mean, something kind of similar that's really dark and fucked up, but it's like done. Also, this was kind of like this director's kind of big breakout. It's the second movie in the Vengeance one, and he did have that Korean movie that was more popular like in 2000, but it was like a military film. It wasn't very like stylized, you know, it was kind of like a by numbers thing at the time. And so this is kind of like his breakout too, and now he is like kind of touted internationally as like, oh, this is representing Korea. Like, oh, look what like good directors we have. Like, look how stylized they are and specific to Korea they are. And so people like rally around that. Like, yeah, you need to watch Oldboy. Like, this is where this guy like got his come up. It's like, that's kind of cool.
It's kind of interesting too, because like you think about, I was thinking just now about a Serbian film, and that movie also has incredibly fucked up things, and it also has some action sequences, but that movie is maligned, and reasonably so, I would say.
True. Yeah.
But like, it's no grandma anywhere is suggesting that shit. Nobody in Serbia or anywhere else is saying, well, have you kids, you want to sit down and watch a Serbian film with Grammy? No, nobody's doing that shit.
That's a really good point, though, because that is such a fine line.
Thank you.
Because I remember watching this movie and thinking how fucked up it was, and it had just like crawled into my brain and has never left, and just like something you like, it's indistinguishable. It's like so specifically unique, and you're like, oh my god, yeah, Oldboy. And yet I always highly regarded it. But you're right, a Serbian film is like very similar in a lot of ways, and yet it's like disgusting.
It's way more graphic.
It's way more graphic, but also, and I think this is kind of the key change, at least in my mind, just riffing right now. This is what I see as the key difference, is the tone. We were talking about the comic booky aspects of this movie. We're talking about the magical realism that exists within a somewhat realistic world. I think that gives the human brain enough room for disassociation from the more fucked up aspects of this movie, and also the lack of the extreme graphic shit that goes on in a Serbian film. So like those two key differences will make the thing. Like the graphicness of a Serbian film is obviously what keeps it out of like most people's hands just on face value alone, as it should. But then you also have this aspect of fucking magical realism where like when you watch that movie, you're not like, I don't know, there's nothing about it that to me is like there's magic in the world that explains how this plot is driven the way it happens here. And to me, I just think it gives us a way of disconnecting when it feels too close or when it feels too personally disgusting. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe that's just me riffing on an idea, but to me, it seems like there's a tonal disconnect here, the same way that like, you know, you watch a TV show like The Wire and you watch a TV show like Breaking Bad, and they're very, 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 very fucking different. They're both dealing with crime, with drugs, with killing rivals and shit like that. But one of them is grounded in reality, and all the disappointments and all of the, you know, all of the realism that comes with that, and it's great for that. And then the other one is great for the opposite. Do you know what I mean? For a Serbian film, the thing that falls apart for it is everything it shoves in there as in terms of disgusting shit.
Whoa, Randy.
So
Poor choice of words.
Yeah, probably.
Are you suggesting
Catch you fuckers at a bad time?
Are you suggesting that a Serbian film is the Breaking Bad of film?
It's the Breaking Bad of film, guys.
They're the same thing. They're the same exact thing.
A Serbian film is the Serbian film of a Serbian films.
It is. Gentlemen,
and everything that entails.
It's the best Serbian film I've ever seen.
It's the only one
It's the best Serbian film I've ever Serbian seen.
Do we have anything else worth mentioning on Oldboy before we rate it?
I really like the scene where he breaks down.
With the tongue and everything.
Yeah.
That shit makes me so fucking sad.
It does. Yeah. It's like watching a train wreck or something. You just, oh man, it's terrible. And also we mentioned the hammer scene is badass, but there's a couple, I liked his fight with Mr. Han. That shit was pretty cool. He gets his ass whooped.
It was. He does. He almost would have won without Eugene's help, but then Eugene blasts Han in the head, and saves him in the last second, just so that he can continue with his vengeance quest.
And we mentioned this with Thirst too, where they blend genres a lot in Korea. Where with Thirst, it was like this romantic comedy. There's a lot of gore and like crazy stuff going on. This is kind of similar in that like it's kind of an action movie, more I guess like The Foundation, but it's got this weird mystery, and then at one point you think is a love story, and then they twist it on its own fucking head, and then it becomes a terrible distortion of, I don't know, I like the kind of blends, because it's not just like Fast and the Furious, it's action.
Right, yeah. And there's merit to movies like that, but they're just very, very different kinds of merit. And also I wanted to bring this up because I had mentioned it earlier or referenced it. The end of this movie, which is, after all that happens and Dae-Su has nothing left in his life except for the potential for a forgetful relationship with Mido, his daughter. He goes for it with his the hypnotist that he finds. And at the end of this, after he's hypnotized or whatever, he's found in the snow by Mido, and she's like, "Oh, are you okay?" or whatever. And she's like, "Who is out here with you?" And there's two sets of tracks and two chairs sitting there, which leads you to think that it's possible that they'll just follow those breadcrumbs the same way they followed the fucking Blue Dragon breadcrumbs and everything else, and find out again that he's in love with his daughter and been like doing horrible things with his daughter. So, I mean, and here's another thing, is something I found out by watching some true crime or listening to some true crime stuff. There's at least a few cases where, and this is from one in particular, and I don't remember the specifics of the case, but a woman was reconnected with her like estranged father who she had never met, who was like just a rat bastard and ended up being a serial killer. And the two of them fell in love. And in the course of this fucking discussion of this thing, I was like, what are they talking about? Apparently there's like a scientific thing where like 1 in like 10,000 cases where an estranged son or daughter meets up with her estranged a biological dad or biological mother. There's some sort of weird juju that happens where they're similar enough and they're disconnected enough to where they are sexually attracted, and people live out their whole lives this way as a relationship. I'm just letting you guys know that's a thing that happens, and I don't know the specifics, and I'm probably misrepresenting one or two things about it.
It's somewhat based in reality then, huh?
Yeah, but I don't know if this movie, I don't know if they knew this when they wrote the fucking story to this, but I'm just saying, like, there is an element of disgusting reality in that. And no kink shaming situation that we are. I'm just like, they're two adults. As long as you're not a serial murderer and not producing like 4-headed babies, I guess. I don't know.
I prefer my babies with 4 heads, Randy.
I think I'm gonna shame that kink as well.
4 separate heads.
I know.
Don't have sex with your family member.
I don't know, man.
I'm shaming it. I'm shaming.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm not gonna die on this hill.
Bob,
so
are you gonna shame this
ahead.
kink? You're a big advocate for not kink shaming.
Is that even a kink? I agree that you should not do that. It's
Yes.
fucked up.
I agree that it's pretty repulsive to me.
I don't even know that that's a kink people have. I guess it happens.
The thing is, I'm also repulsed by the idea of ass to mouth, so I'm not doing that. But people love that shit. It's the hottest shit in the world.
Love that shit.
So I mean, I just don't know. I don't know where that line is drawn anymore, and I just really don't want to tell people what to do. All I can say is that it repulses the fuck out of me, and I really don't think that the world needs any children that can't, sit up or whatever anymore.
If you ever listen to this cast, you know for damn sure Randy is not an ass man.
True.
Poop comes out of there. Poop.
I love that shit every time it comes up. That shit cracks me up.
I'm just not into it.
let's go ahead and rate this thing out of 5. Juice, would you please do us the honors and kick us off? How you feel about Oldboy?
Yeah, so this movie came from my poll pick, something we're doing this year where we get to pick all 3 movies. And I picked all 3 movies with a similar kind of theme of them being like not really horror, but like these dark kind of psychological thrillers in a way. And I think this would be the case for all 3 of them. It's why I picked them, because I love all 3 of them. But I'm going to give this one a 5. But I even thought about it this week. I kind of knew that when I picked all 3 movies. That's again why I picked them. But I really, leading up to this, knowing that it was this film, I tried to put some research into it. I watched the Vengeance trilogy. I try to compare it to other films. I did want to watch the 2013 American remake with Josh Brolin. I just didn't get a chance to do it. I wanted to, because I wanted to at least be able to reference it
curious.
in some way. Yeah, I'm curious too. But I distinctly remember watching this film for the first time, and again, it just stuck in my brain. It is something that has lived there ever since. It kind of blew me away and created this kind of weird foundation for what to expect from Korean films. I've also now watched almost all of this director's work, and I really like him as a director. And this still, we covered Thirst last year. I gave it a 4 and then 0.5 for the Yabos, but I like this movie more, and I love Thirst. This movie's just, that idea of it being so dark and twisted and so distinctly unique in a way, and yet so touted in Korea, there's something about that I love. It's so weirdly twisted that just so many people would tout this movie and how dark it is. But I agree with them though, because I love the film. So it's almost like finding these comrades. Yeah, we all think this movie's baller, even though it's so fucked up. Yeah, cool.
I mean, if that America has its share of those. I mean, shit, we're doing a horror movie podcast. I mean, The Shining, for its time, I think, certainly probably had a similar sort of effect on people that I think this movie did. The Exorcist, for God's sake, that still has the reputation for what it is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that, I think it's rad that, Korea, because of this film, was able to break into the international market on the back of one really strong film, because America is the ground zero for obviously Hollywood and for international film production and things like that. So we had a pretty easy go of it. We could make a bunch of fuck ups and still have 1 or 2 Wizards of Oz to get us by, and shit like that. But Korea didn't necessarily have that on an international scale, at least not to my knowledge. And this movie really once you get they started capturing people like us, dudes in college in America. Yeah. And that's that's a pretty big step to becoming
some of us,
widely respected source of film. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm tangenting here, but I think that is really fucking interesting.
I do. I don't know. It kind of tickles me. I like that it's so dark and fucked up, and so many people I don't know, still recommend it and love it. So again, this is a 5. I like the style. There are problems I think with with like the logic of the mystery. It's like, again, like I said at the beginning, it's not a mystery you could ever solve from the beginning. Like, oh, I know. And so I think knowing now that it's based off like a comic book and so it has like a source material, it never bothered me anyways because it had a little bit of that feel, but it like especially doesn't bother me now. And I like the more of the like philosophical ideas behind it. The action's kick ass. That fucking hammer scene is so dope. I love that shit so much. But yeah, 5 stars for me.
Cool. 5 stars from Soju.
Who wants to go next, Bob?
I'm gonna slide in here so Randy can't change his,
I'll bet
his
you
rating
will.
on me.
Out of 5, Bob, what you gonna give Old Boy?
I remember the first time watching this movie being pretty blown away. Over like the course of subsequent viewings, I feel like it doesn't stick with me quite as hard as it did originally. Maybe just because I've seen like more Korean movies since then, or just more movies in general. But the shock value has sort of like worn off a little bit, I guess. Like the movie is real twisted, but like there are no likable characters in it at all, which I think if Dae-Su was like somewhat of a redeemable character, I think it would sort of improve upon the movie a little bit for me. There's some holes in the plot that feel like out of place in this movie, or like, you know, plot devices that feel out of place in this movie that sort of take me out of it a little bit. Some of the choices just seem kind of strange. The craft of the movie is phenomenal. It looks great. The acting is fantastic. The fight choreography is definitely one of the standouts, if not the standout of this movie. That one action sequence in the hallway is people rave about it. Everybody knows about that scene, you know. Overall, though, I think I'm gonna land at a 3.5 for Oldboy. A little bit lower than I anticipated giving it, but I don't know. This is probably the 3rd time I watched it, and it just doesn't feel quite as like game changing to me now, I guess. And maybe that's, you know, just with, you know, an extra 13 years of movie watching, or 17 years of movie watching.
You've watched some fucked up shit since then, Bob.
Yeah, for sure.
You've seen a lot of Arrow films since
You're
then.
numb. You're numb.
Just like the Linkin Park song.
I've become
there you go. Get on
That's
that.
Bob right now.
Get on that, Randy. 3.5 from your boy, Bob.
All right.
Randy, how do you feel about Oldboy?
So I love this movie. I mean, it's been like you guys when we first watched it, or first time I watched it, whenever that was. It was pretty game changing for me in terms of how I was thinking about international film. I hadn't seen a lot of international film that really rose to the challenge of at least international from beyond like the Western world, shall we say, that really rose to the challenge of things like I don't know, big budget fucking major movies here, just purely out of like budgetary constraints and just a different kind of industry setting, I imagine. So this kind of like was like one of the movies that made me be like, okay, so what's going on out there? These guys have some great storytelling chops. They have, you know, they're getting the same diet of movies that we get. They're just not getting it from the source like we do, as being Americans, where most fucking major production, internationally known films come from. So I don't know. In that way, it's really impactful for me and just culturally in general. Cinematically, it's so fun to watch. I couldn't disagree more with Rob about its impact, you know, on repeat viewings. I think I've probably seen this like 5 times now, and I've never not been just heartbroken sad for Dae-Su and Mido at the end, because like not the way that the thing that he does to them, the thing that Eugene does to them is so, I don't want to say perverse, like it's perverse, but it's more than that. It's so fucking goddamn evil to take what like a reconnection of a long separated father and son, a wrongly separated father and daughter, excuse me, and reconnecting them in such a way as to trick them into crossing lines that no culture accepts crossing. You know what I mean? So it's just very, very heartbreaking to me that they were tricked in such a way, especially Mido, who's literally just a child and has no say in any of the sins that Dae-Su is supposed to die for. So I don't know. It's the fact that a movie can still impact me that well after repeat viewings is the biggest indicator I have that this is a movie for me. This is a movie that I think deserves high praise, deserves a high score. So I was oscillating between a 4 and a 4.5. I'm going to go with the 4.5. The shortcomings we talked about are pretty much all that I have in terms of shortcomings. The way some of these things hang together is a little weird. It's a little strange to have the magical realism sitting right next to the visceral realism, but there is a purpose to it, which we discovered in our conversation here today. So like that helped put that into perspective for me. But it's still sort of like on viewing. Every time I watch it, I'm sort of like, okay, so there's a guy with a dog up here. What is this guy with a dog doing up here? Who sent this guy up here? And I don't know, shit like that, like just little things that's just the way my mind works. I'm very much like, I'll pick things apart. You guys know this at this point. So, I love the music choice. It's something that stuck out to me this time that I never really noticed before. It keeps me thinking about like what Justin was saying. There's a philosophy to this movie. I'm not sure that I have it fully down pat though still, which might be a shortcoming of the storytelling or might be a strength of the storytelling, depending on how you want to look at it. So for me, I think this movie has, I think there are things that could have probably been done to improve this movie, but it's so fucking enjoyable that I can't reasonably give it less than a 4.5. I'm going to go with that.
All right, 4.5 from Randy. That's going to set our aggregate at a 4.3. Let's go ahead and jump over into our Rotten Tomatoes segment and see what the critics and users think about Oldboy.
Certified fresh to death.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Rotten Tomatoes segment in which I'm going to be looking at the critics and user score on RottenTomatoes.com, and I'm going to have these two gentlemen guess between the 0 and 100% what percentage they think of critics and users gave this a positive score. One day I'm going to write down the intro to this, and it's not going to sound like somebody slapping together a book report at the last second.
You won't. You will never write it down.
You know me too well. All right, let's start with the critics score. I think that last week we started with Justin for the critics, so let's start with Rob for the critics today. There are 150 critic reviews for this film. Enough for
a good sample size for critics.
Yeah, enough to go off of for sure. So, Rob, what do you think the critics gave this movie?
I feel like this is somewhat of a critical darling. So I'm going to go pretty high. I'll basically mirror our score. I'll go with an 85.
85 percentile. All right. Juice, how you feeling?
Damn, that's
you gonna $1?
That's what I was gunning for, honestly. I was kind of set on 85. I think it's going to be high as well. And also it's got like the international status that tend to like go over well with the critics. But 86 seems too high. I don't think it's in the 90s because of its dark nature. I think it's going to drop a score. Like there's going to be people who have a problem with the incest.
It's those damn Christians, I tell you.
Oh God, why don't they like incest? So I think I'm going to $1 down and just say an 84. I'm not going to take the high end.
You're going to discount. All right. Well, 84 from Soju, 85 from Bob. And Soju's going to take it this time. He was dead on with the discount dollar. It's an 82%.
Whoa, 82%. Close.
So you guys were right in the right zone. I actually would have definitely gone $1 higher. So well done, Juice.
The Straight Chillin' Crew is with the P, or well, no, with the critics. Ooh, let's see what the audience.
We're with the P.
Yeah, but boys.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I like your hat.
Oh, Bob doesn't
cut you off in the past.
Why have I been doing that?
I don't know. And it feels like ages. Let's go to our audience score. There are 100,000 plus ratings from users for this film. Soju, you're going to get the first bite of the apple this time. What are you thinking?
Actually, think it's going to be lower.
Okay.
I know it's got like the cult status and everything, but I still think it's going to be lower. But not too low. I'll give it a 75.
75%. Bob, how do you feel about the user score?
I feel like everybody I hear talk about this movie just loves it. Everybody raves about this movie. Obviously, there's got to be some people out there that don't like it. I'm gonna I'm going to $1 up juice. You said 75.
Ooh.
I'm going to go 76.
76, year of our nation, 76. This time, Bobby's going to take it. It's actually well higher than either of you guessed. It's 94%.
Damn.
Wow, that is way higher than I
94.
thought. Oh, damn. Hey, Bob.
So, you know,
Yep.
Yeet mesquite, bish.
No.
Yeet, mesquite, bish.
No,
That's
All
what
right.
you get now.
No, that's
That's what you get now. You get that. All right, let's read a negative.
sore ass loser over here.
Oh, yeah.
Sore ass, anyway.
Sorry about that sore ass.
Critics' consensus: violent and definitely not for the squeamish. Park Chan-wook's visceral Oldboy is a strange, powerful tale of revenge. That seems more like a synopsis than a critics' consensus, but
Yeah.
all right. Cool. And here's one negative review.
All right.
Be amazed at my cruel virility. Feel the pain. Oh, yeah.
What?
Oh, yeah.
Be bedazzled.
Please
I
be
wish we would
bedazzled,
read
please.
a review that says, be prepared.
It is very bizarre indeed.
I hope that, like, hey, if we're soliciting 5-star reviews right now, people just tell us how bedazzling we are on iTunes,
Yeah.
please.
We are, by the way. If you listen to the show and dig what we do, please do leave us a 5-star rating and review over on iTunes. It's a great way to support the show, and it only takes a minute or two of your time.
Yeah, Bob will literally love you for it.
True.
Yeah. And that almost as much as he hates the negative reviews.
Almost.
Almost, but there's very few hates that could match that.
We don't need to get into that.
Rob is training his mind and body to defeat somebody in a Machiavellian scheme by imprisoning them for 15 years
Man.
for leaving a negative review that says fart on this podcast.
if you have a relative that you can fuck, watch out, because I'm coming for you.
Oh no, that's we're getting specific. All right. That's
Is
it for the Rotten Maters, though. That shit's
tight?
rotten.
Tight.
Or
Let's
not
go
rotten,
ahead
excuse
and
me.
jump into that big steaming pile of trivia.
It's totally time for trivia.
All right, boys, we're going to start right off with a little game. So there was a scene where Shiboy Dae-Su goes to a sushi bar. He eats a live octopus. That shit was real. And not only was it real, I want you to guess how many times he did that. So how many live octopi?
Live
How many
octopi.
did he eat? How many? Yeah. So, Bob,
Yeah.
I'll let you go first. Bob, how many do you think he ate?
Octopi.
Rigatoni.
Octopi is my favorite pie because you get to eat 8 of them. So I'm going to say 8 times.
8. Randy, how many do you think he ate?
I'm going to use my boy Nick Cage as inspiration.
Nice.
He ate 2 cockroaches for Vampire's Kiss, and I'm going to guess the same number for old Dae-Su here.
How many? 2?
2.
Okay.
2 of them.
And Bob, what'd you say? 8?
Yeah.
All right.
It's probably going to be higher because that's a more interesting trivia if it's extra high, but whatever.
Randy's going to take it.
Hey, all right.
4 live octopi were eaten for the scene with Dae-Su in the sushi bar. A scene which provoked some controversy abroad. Eating live octopus in Korea is commonplace, although it is usually sliced first. When the film won the Grand Prix at the Pekans Film Festival, the director thanked all of the octopi along with the cast and crew. That's pretty funny.
That's what it's all about.
Juice,
Did they have to?
When
Did
you
they
were,
have to fuck?
when you
Oh,
were
sorry,
living
go
in
ahead.
Korea, did you eat any live octopi?
I did. It's called sanakji, and I did have it one time. I did not bite the head off, but I have had the live
You ate the
octopus.
tentacles,
Oh.
mouthful of tentacle.
Yep, and now we're going to get boycotted.
The way those tentacles
Is it-
like just jut out of his mouth is so distressing. to
Yeah,
me.
that was really dark.
really disturbing.
Was it good? Did you like it?
It was fine. You can dip it in like some sesame like sauce that they mix with like pepper or whatever,
Yeah.
sesame oil. And I mean it doesn't have any particular flavor. It's wild because the tentacles grab you, like even getting it off of your chopstick, it'll like grab your tongue. like as you're it'll like suction and shit, and like as it, like it's on your chopstick, and like I have a video of it, it like won't let go sometimes. You're like, shit, like get in my mouth.
You're a monster.
And it moves like on the plate. It's like wriggles around. It's pretty wild.
Well,
but
that's
people
that's
love
pretty
that
goddamn
shit.
horrific sound. I
people
don't
love
know,
it.
man.
Would you say it's wriggle-toony?
Wriggle toony.
Wriggle toony. I'd eat
There you
it
go.
again, but I would never crave it. I would never be
That's
like,
good.
But if like somebody like wanted to go, I would be fine, I guess.
It's no
fine.
malort. I mean, some things, some Rubicons you just don't cross twice. All right.
All right. The line on the painting of Dae-Su's cell reads, "Laugh and the world laughs with you. Weep and you weep alone." These are the first lines of Ella Wheeler Wilcox's famous poem "Solitude." Okay.
Well, that makes sense. That's I really like that line because the way they use it is having Dae-Su's like gnarled up, like shaking smile, like multiple times throughout the movie,
Yeah.
where he's clearly like doing it as a reaction to his pain. But at the end of the film, when he's supposed to be in the most pain, but he's post hypnosis, it's like he's got a pain that he doesn't even understand is still there. So he's hugging Mido post his hypnosis and putting on this face, but it seems more genuine because he's actually kind of forgotten and is kind of able to be happy, but there's also something underlying that's not. I love that.
All right. Finally, let's see. Oh, this is the actor Min-Shik is a Buddhist, and he had to pray after eating the poor octopi because they're not supposed to eat meat. And he had to
Bummer.
eat it live. Yeah. There's a ton of trivia, but we got lots to do. So let's go ahead and head into the hunting segment.
We talking Cooter of the Week.
Straight chillin'. Cooter of the week.
Juice, what is a Cooter and why are we hunting them?
Cooter is a character type and a straight chillin' exclusive. Cooter has to hit 3 of these 5 points to be considered a Cooter. The 5 points are manipulation, smug arrogance, sexual deviance, overall looking attire, and overall patheticness. Boys, I think we're going to have some good Cooter candidates this week.
Agree.
Who would like to nominate someone to Cooter Court first?
Well, you got old Evergreen Terrace.
Eugene?
Eugene.
Evergreen.
Yeah. He's a Cooter as fuck.
Well, give me a point, Bob.
yeah,
Give me
okay.
one of the points.
He's nude a lot.
Hang on.
He's manipulation out
All right.
the ass.
So Bob is nominating manipulation. Bob, how does he manipulate? Well, I don't remember.
How, Rob?
he manipulates Dae-Su the entire film, as well as poor little Mido. So also, we didn't really touch on this in the movie. I assume that he locks Dae-Su up for 15 years because his daughter is 3 years old when he captures him.
Yeah,
So
to
she's
grow
then
up. Yeah,
18.
that is the point. Yeah.
Yeah. So he raises that girl for 15 years, and she doesn't know who the fuck he is or like why he's doing it or what. So that's like insane
Yeah.
manipulation.
Oh, yeah. I would like to nominate look and attire, and there's one specific scene I would like to point to as evidence here in Cooter Court. The tramp stamp. I'm giving the look and attire for the cross tramp stamp right above his naked bum ass.
I'd like to apologize on behalf of Soju for anyone listening who may or may not have a tramp stamp.
Well, this one specifically, I think led to the Cooter look and attire.
Gotcha.
I think that matches.
I mean, the man spends a lot of time. Yeah, that's fine. To me, like, as far as attire, the fact that he's like, I know it's his office or whatever, but there are multiple people in there hanging out, doing shit, working for him while he's walking around nude. And to me, that's just, it's a little cootery behavior. I don't know if that's the right category for it, but
also that
it's got to be mentioned.
That man has a ton of money, apparently.
Oh, yeah.
He should not be wearing a bucket hat. Bucket
There's
hat
no wrong
and
time for a
tramp
bucket
stamps.
hat.
that combo, that's gonna get him looking.
Dude, you
attire
get you
for
a
me.
bucket hat, you get yourself some slick, bright yellow goggles,
It
and
was
a sweater
like
vest.
a Louis
You in the
Vuitton
90s, baby.
bucket hat.
You think so?
You in the late
Bob?
90s, early 2000s. Get some Jinkos in there. Hell yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I
Randy,
think
you
the
want to
patheticness
nominate?
for that point. No, I mean, I was going to continue with this.
Okay, go ahead.
For Eugene, like, I mean, his whole existence pretty much is pretty pathetic, right? Like, it's you knock up your sister, she kills herself, and you can't handle it. Therefore, you construct a reality and build an empire, a literal like fucking business empire based on the steam of your hatred for somebody who has way less to do with your misery than you yourself. That's fucking pathetic.
It's pretty pathetic.
You gotta inhale that steam.
Sexual deviance. We don't really see a whole lot of that.
No.
Just kidding. He knocks up his
He
sister. That
deviates
is not
sexually.
okay.
Yeah.
Even if
quite-
it's consensual, which actually it's like, I don't know. She's kind of like flirty saying that. It's not very clear. And
We
it's
don't-
also kind of
yeah.
a twisted perception. But I will say, no matter, even if it's consensual, you should not have sex and impregnate your underage sister. Don't do it.
I agree. Sometimes consent is not enough.
Don't do it.
I don't know, man.
do that.
My role is usually if it's consenting adults, which they aren't. That's kind of the key factor there for me.
Yeah.
If consenting adults are going to do what they're going to do, and if they're not hurting anybody, then that's kind of my that's
But
my
if
main
she gets
litmus
pregnant,
test.
then there's a high risk that child could be
Right,
deformed,
which is
so that's
why
hurting
it's
somebody.
you're right, and I'm not talking about their case necessarily in particular. I'm just talking about the very concept. I don't
Okay.
think that on its
incest.
on the surface level on its own. I mean, if we're talking kinks, like if people want to do, they're gonna do it.
So
You know what
real
I mean?
quick, Randy, can you say I support incest? Can you say that for me real quick?
No, but I can clip out a segment of you saying that and use it as a bump.
Do it. We got Rob's daddy kink.
I'll take that over the incest one any day.
Well, anyway, yeah, I don't know. It's definitely sexually deviant, no matter how you slice it.
Yeah. He
In
also
this
manipulates two other people who are related to bang. So I feel that falls under sexual deviance as well. I would say.
Yeah, that's true. Like
Yeah.
everything
Oh,
he does
yeah,
is driven by a perverse sexual
Yeah,
deviance.
by-
Yeah, it's not just manipulating somebody to like do something bad. It's
Yeah.
like sexually driven. Yeah, that's pretty fucked
Yeah.
up.
And arrogance. Is this man arrogant?
Oh yeah, I think he hits all the points, and I think he's
Yeah.
Have you seen the bucket hat?
you son of a bitch.
I think
arrogant.
so. I think so.
Yeah.
I think even the way he like calls and teases like Dae-Su and
Yeah.
it's
true.
pretty
Oh, it's
arrogant.
audacious that it's audacious that not only does he do those things, but he does them successfully. Like that's the
and-
unbelievable thing,
And he
It
throws
would
his
be-
money around. He's like, "Oh, you thought
Oh,
this
yeah.
guy was with you? I bought his whole building, you bitch."
Oh yeah.
He says bish too.
He does.
He does say
He
it.
also kills a dude in a public space with no worries whatsoever. He kills Dae-Su's like old classmate
And the old
in
PC
the internet
bong.
bar.
Yeah,
with a
that's right.
broken fucking CD-ROM. That's a 90s way to go I can think of.
Fuck your free AOL. That's what he said.
There you go. So I think he hits all the points personally, and I think for particularly it's all tied into the manipulation stem.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think he's a cooter as fuck. I don't imagine we're
Yeah.
going to find a cooter that's more cooter than this man in this movie.
I
Evergreen
don't think so. I
Terrace
think there's
takes the cake.
Evergreen.
there's arguments for others, but there's nobody who's going to outshine this
No,
bitch.
he can't.
Nobody.
He can't outshine.
Nope, for sure. We
Book
got him. We got him.
We got book 'em, boys.
Good hunt, fellas. It's time to let our hair down. We're getting into what we've been watching this week.
Hey gang, what you been watching?
Randy, what you been watching?
Well, not a whole ton here. I've been watching, yeah, maybe a quarter ton. I've been watching WandaVision. Last week I was a little bit down on it. There was an episode that I was like, I'm not sure where this is going, and it may not go somewhere that's interesting to me, but they brought it back for me. I'm very engaged with it. I think there's one, maybe two more episodes, and I'm very interested to see how it ends. I'm especially excited to hear, and this is totally hearsay, I could be totally wrong on this, but as I understand it, that this is a one-off, like almost mini-series level thing where there's not going to be a continuation, which I think is the smartest thing they can do, because this is definitely just a really long Marvel movie. It's just told episodically because it kind of lends itself to that. I'm enjoying it. I watched the Mountain Goats Jordan Lake sessions. They did a review on that. I've been watching their live performances in a big empty studio that they did. It's very, very good. They're one of my favorite bands. Like I said, it's a slim week, so that got to come up. I watched a show on YouTube called VCR Party by the Found Footage Festival, which is just a bunch of people that involved with that organization, I guess, getting together and showing off their new finds of really bizarre or odd things that they found on VHS tapes or in anachronistic old stacks of DVDs or whatever else. Which is where I found my favorite thing that I watched this week, which is actually a McGruff the Crime Dog song that was produced in the 80s that made me laugh so fucking hard and is actually a straight up, as the children say, bop. It is a fun fucking song.
Wow.
Yeah. Cracking cocaine. That's the good shit. McGruff the Crime Dog sings with kids. Look that shit up. It is a legitimately good song, and it's very, very funny to hear a man do a dog's voice and sing about cocaine.
Oh, wow.
It's very, very, very good.
I can't wait to hear that.
Oh, it's on the Slack chat.
Bob?
It's on the Slack, man.
It.
Oh,
Okay.
You got to check that shit out, man. It is so good. We'll share it in the show notes or something. And then last but not least, I saw that Little Nightmares 2 had come out, so I went to see if Switch had it, and they did. And they also had Little Nightmares 1, which I didn't realize, and it was on sale for $7. So I have just barely started Little Nightmares, the first one, and I'm enjoying it. So that's
good.
That's the short version.
If you get stuck on a puzzle, Randy, I believe we have a full walkthrough available on the YouTube.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, don't go fishing for views, man. Come on.
Just saying, if you get stuck. Got you.
Soju gotcha. Juice, what you been watching?
Let's see. I did watch those other two movies, Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance and Lady Vengeance, that make up the trilogy, and I like them in different ways. Both of them, the first half I was like, do I like this? I don't think so. But then by the end of the movies, both of them, I kind of felt the same way. I was like, oh yeah, that was pretty good. And I've been thinking about them since. They're no Oldboy, that's for damn sure. But they're they've got their own flavors, and they're interesting in their own ways. But they do take a little patience to kind of get through. Real fucked up shit, though. Really fucked up shit. Yeah, it's dark stuff.
I didn't realize.
Yeah, it's really dark. I also just got on this random kick to play some Zelda. So I started with the OG, and that I've beat it like several times, and I enjoy playing through it. But it's one of those ones that it almost is like going through the steps a little bit. It doesn't have the soul to me that like A Link to the Past has, where I still find it very beautiful, the music very moving in a lot of ways. It's just like almost like a this is neat kind of thing, because for its time, that shit's pretty groundbreaking. Like, oh my god, like all these.
It's anachronistic now.
Yeah, you can go to this dungeon over here and stuff, and I get a kick out of playing through it. It doesn't take me too long because I've played it so many times now, but I played through that, and then I had never played the Minish Cap before, so I have my little Retro Pie thing, and I have it on there. So I started to play it. It was done by Capcom, which is weird.
Yeah,
but
they did a few for handhelds.
Yeah, so I started to play through that one. I haven't got too far into it. It's okay. It's got some of the music from Ocarina of Time in it, but done in like a more 8-bit style. So that's it's weird. It's weird to hear it in that style. Huh?
That was GBA, right? That's not one of the DS ones, right?
I honestly,
it was one screen, correct?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I think so, but I'm not
I can't keep those straight.
100% sure. So
I'll tell you, man. Complete tangent. If you ever get a chance to play that Link's Awakening remake on Switch, fucking do it.
I want to.
It's worth it.
It looks beautiful. Other than that, though, that's been about it. Bob,
yo,
what kind of baby blues you been watching this week?
No baby blues, actually.
What?
Whoa, just Laserdisc?
No. I've been watching shit on the big screen, actually. Shouts outs to old Sunray Cinema. They're still keeping the drive-in strong here in Saxonville, Florida. They did a showing of Princess Bride at the drive-in this past weekend. We went and checked that out. It was a lot of fun. It was conceivably fantastic. If you haven't seen that movie, it's a classic. Definitely watch it. Also, speaking of Sunray, they're doing this really cool thing where they will let you rent out an entire movie theater and play any movie of your choice for a small fee, and you can just invite a group of your friends, and they kind of keep it social distance, so that there is a cap of how many people they'll let in the theater. But it was my girlfriend's birthday over the weekend. We rented the theater out. We watched That Thing You Do. It was a lot of fun. Again, if you haven't seen That Thing You Do, yeah, it's a fucking classic. Like, watch That Thing You Do. Tom Hanks, his directorial debut. He's also plays a pretty major role in the movie, but he wrote and directed it. It's about this upcoming band in the late 50s, early 60s, right around there.
60s, yeah.
60s, yeah. They get like a #1 hit record, and it's about them, going from zeros to heroes, basically. Great movie. Check it out.
Don't watch the director's cut, is my opinion.
I agree.
Watch the original cut.
I agree with that. Yeah, the theatrical cut is
just a
better,
little meandering.
Yeah. But other than that and Oldboy, that's really all I've been watching this week.
That's a hell of a combo.
Yeah, right. Princess Bride and
with the
Oldboy. Yeah, that's all I got. We got one more segment to get to here this week. It is, of course, our Hotline Scream.
Hotline Scream.
If you are listening and would like to call in and leave a voicemail, you can hit us up at 904-638-3231. We again have been getting a shitload of voicemails over the past couple weeks. We're gonna play 4 tonight, so there's a few that aren't going to be aired. But do not fret, we'll be getting to them next week. First up, I forget what our prompt even was last week, or if we had one. Who knows?
They'll remind us.
Yeah. We'll see what y'all say. First up, we're gonna hear from, I think, G Baby. Let's listen to G Baby.
Yo, what's up, crew? G Baby. Calling in. I missed the Valentine's Day cutoff. It's gonna knock that one out a little bit early. In terms of what we do for Valentine's Day, nothing too crazy. We are a couple of weirdos. So, like, one year I dressed up like a Cupid. I wrapped a white towel around myself like a diaper, like sumo style, and put hearts on my nipples and fashioned a bow and arrow out of twigs and some twine, and took pictures of myself and made a big collage on a board. So that was fun. My wife got a kick out of that. She actually one-upped me this year for Valentine's Day. She went on there's a site called Songfinch where you can go and they have like a stable of professional, songwriters and performers. You pay a bunch of money and you give them background on like your relationship or whatever you want them to do to craft a song with, and then they mix it, record it, whatever, and kick it back to you in an MP3. So my wife did that, and she picked this dude. He's an Irish like folk singer, younger dude named Tiz McNamara, who's actually on Spotify. I just thought I'd share this because I thought I'm super proud of my wife, and it's such a dope gift, and it's funny too. So she wrote this, or this dude wrote the song and put it together, and she gave it to me for Valentine's Day this year, and I thought it was just super rad. She made it funny because that's who we are. So I'm gonna play a little clip that I thought you guys would enjoy.
I hope you know you're my best friend, and I will love you till the end. But Sharknado gave me a boner.
So some background on that. That's like an inside thing with me and my wife. One day I was scrolling through Netflix and I was like, oh, Sharknado's on. And she just popped up and was like, Sharknado gave me a boner. So it's like an inside funny thing between us, and she incorporated into this loving, like folksy Valentine's Day song, which I thought was pretty badass, and I wanted to share it. So, anywho, later crew, hope you all had a happy Valentine's Day, and keep chilling, children.
I love that G Baby's living up to his name with that diaper.
G baby. I thought I was gonna go a more kinky route with the old diaper and everything.
Well, he did talk about a boner NATO. So.
Whoa,
dude, that shit is hilarious. And also hilarious is the speech to text, which reads, "I was scrolling through Netflix and I was like, oh sure, NATO's on, NATO, the National North American Trade Organization.
It's my favorite show.
And she just popped up and was like, Sharknado gave birth."
Facts.
I love
it's
that Rennie
even
gets
funny.
Such a kick out of that.
I fucking love it, dude. This shit's great. Thank you, Jim. We appreciate that.
Thanks, G baby.
Yeah.
That's super.
Sounds
sweet.
like a pretty damn cool song. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like idea too.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Also, thanks for sharing the pictures of you in that diaper in the Slack channel. Way back.
Yeah, it's my phone background now.
Yeah, we've all saved it. Really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, I believe we're going to hear from Jackie. Let's see what she has to say.
What up, boys? It's Jackie B calling from Chicago. I've called in too many times in the last few shows, but that's all right because I have nothing better to do. So I heard you talking on the last episode about blue-collar jobs, which I wouldn't, I'm a teacher, so I wouldn't necessarily consider that a blue-collar job. When I think of blue-collar jobs, I think of manual labor, which I'm not doing that, but I'm doing a lot of emotional labor, and I just had a funny story to share about these little monsters that I have to deal with every day. Man, one thing about kids is they will say whatever the fuck comes to their mind. So I had a student the other day that I came into work and I was justifiably exhausted because of teaching in a pandemic, and I did not look my best. And one of my students looked at me and said, well, someone's not dressed for the occasion. So I just thought that was funny. And kids will say whatever the fuck they want, and regardless of your self-esteem. So that is my little pandemic working story. That's all. Love you guys. Keep chilling. Bye.
That was great.
Fuck that little kid. Shit.
Dude, yeah, where'd you hide the body, Jackie?
Yeah.
Where'd you hide the body?
Those little shizzes.
That's some shit that kids would only know to say because they heard their parents say it. So that little kid's parents are assholes, is what I'm trying to say.
That's true. Or the
Tell them we
media.
said that.
The media's assholes is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I don't know the delineation of blue collar jobs really. I do also think of manual labor, but I've also heard like web coding is considered a blue collar job. No, I think it's just like attainable skill based jobs. Maybe.
What's in there?
So,
It's like white collar and blue collar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, white collar is like middle management and up sort of deal. I think that's my understanding. I don't know. I'm totally probably talking out of my ass here.
I would lump like teachers in with like blue collar esque. You gotta deal with a lot of shit.
I mean, that's a lot of work. It's not just emotional. Like, I've seen teachers chasing kids around, man. That is not a job that's easy to do in the best of times.
Yeah.
So,
and these are not those, for sure.
No. No, they are not.
Thanks for dealing with a lot of horse shit, Jackie. Try and teach those little fucking kids some manners, please, because their parents aren't, that's for sure.
Damn straight. Yeah, it's all on you. It's all on you, Jackie.
It's all your only hope.
The damn
Teachers,
media straight chilling horror podcast.
That's right. Talking about
here keeping the faith.
Talking about butthole nurses and everything.
Butthole nursing.
Thanks for calling in, Jackie. It's always good to hear from you. We got two more. Next up, Miles. Let's hear what Miles has to say.
Hi.
What's going on, guys? It's Miles here. I was calling because I saw the YouTube trailer reaction for Mortal Kombat on the YouTube channel. Good job with that, by the way. I enjoyed it. Definitely keep doing more of those trailer reactions. But it reminded me of when I went to go see Mortal Kombat Annihilation in theaters. So that came out in 1997, so I would have been 7 years old. So my mom took me and my brother to see that movie. And the thing about the first Mortal Kombat movie is it's not exactly high art, but it's a real movie. It's competently made. The acting is good for what it is. Not a good movie. You could even say it was a bad movie, but it's a movie. It's a real movie. The second one, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, is one of the worst films ever made. It is a pile of shit. It is awful in every way imaginable. But I didn't know that when I was 7. I didn't really have, refined taste in my elementary school years. But yeah, so my mom took us to see that. And I was super into this movie, guys. I was like really into this movie. It was like the coolest movie I'd ever seen, which by then I'd seen like 3 movies. So, take that with a grain of salt. But about an hour into this movie, I have to pee. And I got to pee really bad. And as the movie goes on, I have not gone to the bathroom. And it gets to the point, it's near the final battle with Shao Kahn and Liu Kang. I think I got those names right. But I am about to piss my pants. So 7-year-old me had a choice to make. I could either go to the bathroom and miss this awesome fight scene or piss my pants. And, I went with the latter. I decided to piss my pants and just deal with the consequences later. And my mom was not happy, but I did see the rest of that shitty movie. So I guess I'm asking you guys, has there ever been a movie that you were so into that you would rather soil yourself? Yeah. So I'm thankful that Mortal Kombat, the new one, is coming to HBO Max, because if I have to pee, I can just pause the movie because of technology now, which is great. But keep up the good work, guys. Definitely hope you see more of those YouTube.
I think Miles got cut off there at the end, but I would like to say, if peeing your pants is cool, consider Miles' last name Davis.
Wow.
Yes, Bob.
Oh, Bob. Yes, Bob. Yes.
Also, no, I don't think I'd ever just pee my pants to see the end of a movie.
Dude, yeah. That's a great story, by the way, and I totally agree on Mortal Kombat series. Mortal Kombat Annihilation has a world-famous bad line when I think it's Sindel is reintroduced, and her Jade's like, "Mother, you're alive," and she goes, "Too bad you will die." Exactly like that. Exactly fucking like that. It's
I never
great.
pissed my pants in a movie, but I remember being
shitting your pants.
Kid, no, I puked like crazy one time.
Coming in my pants.
God damn.
I puked fucking everywhere one time, and luckily we were in one of those back rows that's kind of off to the side.
Do you remember
so
the movie?
I literally leaned over to the side and puked, and we left for a minute and went and kind of cleaned up, and then we just went to the other side of the
Dude, you are literally Chunk from the Goonies. That's some That's some real shit. Do you remember the movie you were in?
I think it was Road to El Dorado. I was pretty young.
Oh.
It was that animated.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so.
Yeah.
It wasn't Parasite.
So I did puke everywhere one time. So that shit.
I don't have a story where I did that, and I doubt I would do that in a theater. I mean, certainly not now. But when I was a child, I did piss myself while sitting on my father's lap in the Back to the Future ride. So he does not like that ride.
No, that's.
I have vivid memory. I was like 3, so I mean, but that's one of my earliest memories is getting out of that thing wet and having no fucking regrets.
I don't have any memories of like peeing on myself, but I remember being in kindergarten, like sitting at a table with my classmates. There's like 5 or 6 kids at a table. I remember like drinking a lot of like fruit punch at lunch and feeling real sick and then just puking on the table. And I puked so much that it like overflowed onto all the kids' laps. It was insane.
And then I changed schools.
No, they couldn't get rid of my ass. I wasn't going anywhere.
No, fucking Big Red over here is going to be barfing up blood on all the children.
Oh, yeah, it's all red fuck.
Yeah, it was pretty gnarly.
That's nasty.
Thanks, Miles. We appreciate that.
Thanks for sharing your pee-pee pants story.
Yeah, we love honesty around these parts.
We got one more voicemail. It is from Cole. Let's hear what he has to say.
Hey guys, it's Cole calling. I called last week, a pointless message, and it didn't get played because there were so many of us this week. So here's another message, probably won't get played, but I just had to call in and say zibbity zabbity for Randy, Gandy, G, Landy. Thanks guys, keep chilling. Bye.
My dick canonizing 3 times this day. That was fabulous, Cole. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for canonizing my new and nonsensical catchphrase that I came up with in less than a second.
Yeah, Randy's got one. I got hell ye. Bob, what do you have?
I have
Rob's got red puke.
Mm-hmm.
I've got plenty of things.
Okay, Bob.
Okay, Rob.
Hell Skeet clearly isn't taking off. That's fine. That's fine.
Baby blues are taking off always.
Yeah, Daddy does need a new blue. So
there you go.
You've always got the blues, Bob.
There's always money in the blues.
Yeah.
So
there's always lots of dollars in the blues.
Mm-hmm.
Whole dollars.
Thanks for calling, Cole. Yeah, as we mentioned, we've just been getting a shitload of voicemails, so we're kind of working through some bit of a backlog here. Again, if you're listening and want to call and leave a voicemail, hit us up at 904-638-3231. Tell us about banging your family members or whatever.
If you need some
please
kink
don't
counseling,
do that.
Kink counseling, yeah.
Kink counseling from Soju. Call up.
Call in and workshop some mottos for Rob. Some catchphrases. I got one, but I don't know if he's gonna like it.
I have a daddy kink.
That one's gonna stick around, I think. That's real
I think
strong.
Randy will fucking see to it. That's for sure.
I mean, I have the power.
Call in and tell us about all the live animals you've devoured. Let us hear about all that.
That's true. What's the craziest thing you've eaten?
Is it butt? Maybe.
According to Randy,
it could be butt. It could be butt.
It is live. Hopefully it's live. God in heaven.
My God. We're getting darker than Oldboy here. I'm not into it.
All right. That's enough of that. Thanks for calling in, everybody. That's going to do it for us this week at Straight Chilling. We're going to be back next week with a brand new show, as always. We're going to be talking about our next Patreon pick. This one was chosen by the old pee-pee pants himself, Miles. The movie is The Howling 2. Slam your eyeballs into that. Get ready for next week's show. Until then, you can rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Please hit us up on the Instagrams at Straight Chilling Podcast. We're on Twitter at STR8_chilling. You can send us an email through our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. If you want to join in on the daily Slack channel conversations and see whatever crazy nonsense Randy's posting up in there on the daily, just let us know on one of those social media outlets, and I'll send you a link to join in on the fun. And until next week, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling. I have a daddy kink.